Rakesh and Meena Sharma were the perfect couple, admired, respected, and envied by everyone who knew them. But behind the closed doors of their beautiful Bhopal home, a nightmare was silently taking shape. Within months, the smiling father, loving husband, and trusted officer would transform into a cold-blooded killer. What drove this man, once seen as the pillar of his community, to murder his entire family and vanish without a trace? This is the chilling story of how one man's obsession with pride, lies, and reputation turned a picture-perfect life into one of India's most horrifying true crimes. In the quiet residential lanes of Bhopal stood the Sharma family home, a two-story house with white walls, flowering plants, and a small balcony where wind chimes sang softly in the evening breeze. To the outside world, the Sharmas were the picture of happiness. Rakesh Sharma, a 45-year-old government officer, had built a reputation as a responsible man, disciplined, polite, and admired by colleagues. His wife, Meena, devoted her days to caring for their children and keeping the home spotless. Their daughter, Priya, was in college studying commerce, and their son, Arjun, was a bright 10th grader known for his kindness. Neighbors often spoke of how lucky the family seemed. Every morning, the sound of laughter would drift from the kitchen, and every Sunday, the family would visit the temple together before sharing lunch at their favorite restaurant. Rakesh was known for his generosity, often helping neighbors with official paperwork or lending money when someone was in need. There was never any sign of trouble, no hint of the storm quietly forming beneath the surface. Inside the walls of their perfect home, however, Rakesh carried a growing burden. Years of maintaining an image of success had trapped him in a web of lies and pressure. His colleagues envied his lifestyle, unaware that his finances were stretched thin. His pride wouldn't allow him to admit mistakes or failures. Meena noticed small changes, a tightening of his jaw, sleepless nights, and sudden bursts of irritation, but she brushed them aside, believing stress from work was to blame. In the evenings, as the family gathered around the dining table, Rakesh would smile and talk about ordinary things, masking his turmoil with calmness. No one suspected that behind that composed face, he was hiding secrets dark enough to destroy everything he loved. The first signs of change in the Sharma household were almost invisible. It began with Rakesh spending longer hours in his study, the door locked and the curtains drawn. When Meena knocked, he would claim to be working on official files, though the sound of shifting papers and occasional murmurs hinted otherwise. The warmth that once filled their home began to fade, replaced by silence and unease. Rakesh's demeanor changed. He no longer joined his family for evening walks, nor did he smile as easily as before. At work, colleagues noticed he avoided meetings and stopped participating in casual conversations. His eyes carried the look of someone lost in constant thought. Meena, worried but unsure what to do, tried to bring back normalcy by planning family outings, but Rakesh always refused, saying he was too tired. The real trouble began when bank notices started arriving. Meena found unopened envelopes hidden in drawers. When she asked about them, Rakesh dismissed her concerns, saying it was just paperwork. Yet, tension grew heavier with every passing day. Priya noticed her mother crying quietly at night, while Arjun felt his father's anger over trivial mistakes. Unknown to them, Rakesh had been siphoning government funds for years. What had started as small amounts to cover household expenses had turned into large-scale embezzlement. An internal audit was scheduled soon, one that would expose his crimes. Fear consumed him. He imagined the humiliation, the arrest, the news spreading through the community. As the pressure increased, Rakesh's behavior became erratic. He began talking less, sleeping less, and eating almost nothing. Meena's intuition told her something was terribly wrong, but Rakesh's cold silence stopped her from asking further. The perfect image he had built over decades was on the verge of collapsing, and he knew there was no way to escape the consequences, except one. It was a rainy Sunday night when the peace of the neighborhood was shattered. Around midnight, a thick column of smoke rose from the Sharma residence, illuminated by flashes of lightning. Neighbors rushed out in panic, shouting for help as flames consumed the upper floor of the house. The fire department arrived within minutes, breaking through the locked gate and windows. Inside, the air was thick with heat and darkness. When the flames were finally brought under control, firefighters made a horrifying discovery: 4 lifeless bodies lay inside. The scene was chaotic. Mina and the 2 children were found in their bedrooms, their bodies intact but motionless. Rakesh's body was discovered in the living room, badly burned. To the shocked neighbors, it looked like a tragic accident, perhaps caused by a short circuit during the storm. The news spread quickly through the city. The family everyone admired was gone overnight, their once beautiful home reduced to ashes and sorrow. However, investigators soon grew suspicious. The windows were nailed shut from the inside, and the doors were locked in a way that prevented escape. There were no signs of struggle, no attempts to flee. Even more unusual was the smell of gas near the kitchen. Forensic experts later confirmed that the main gas line had been deliberately loosened, allowing the fumes to fill the house before the fire began. As officers examined the ruins, they noticed something else: sleeping tablets on the bedside table in both children's rooms. The pills appeared recently used. Slowly, the idea of an accidental fire faded away. What had looked like a household tragedy was beginning to resemble something far darker. It was no longer a question of how the family had died, but why, and who had set the fire that ended their lives. The post-mortem reports brought chilling clarity to the case. Meena, Priya, and Arjun had traces of strong sedatives in their bloodstreams, enough to render them unconscious within minutes. None of them showed signs of struggle or smoke inhalation, which meant they were already unconscious before the fire began. The gas leak and the flames had only been part of the cover-up. The investigators realized they were dealing with a carefully planned murder, not a domestic accident. Rakesh's body, found in the living room, seemed to tell a different story. Though it was partially burned, the position appeared unnatural. His hand was placed neatly over his chest, and the surrounding objects were strangely undamaged, as if someone had arranged the scene to look convincing. The discovery deepened the mystery. If Rakesh had died trying to save his family, why had the fire been deliberately started? The investigation team began digging into Rakesh's background and financial history. What they found shocked them. Rakesh had been involved in a large-scale embezzlement scheme, manipulating official accounts and pocketing funds for personal use. Years of deceit had finally caught up to him when an audit was scheduled to begin within a week. His colleagues, unaware of his crimes, had noticed his growing anxiety but never guessed the truth. Further inspection of his study revealed hidden drawers containing forged documents, fake signatures, and evidence of illegal bank transfers. Among the files was a sealed envelope with a passport application under a different name. Investigators pieced together a disturbing theory. Rakesh had planned not only to erase his crimes, but also to erase his entire identity. Every new clue painted him as a man cornered by his own lies. But the biggest shock was yet to come. The person everyone believed had died in the fire might not have been Rakesh at all. The turning point came when DNA results from the charred body were returned from the forensic lab. Investigators expected confirmation that the remains belonged to Rakesh Sharma, but the report shattered that assumption. The DNA did not match. The body found in the living room was not Rakesh's. It belonged to an unidentified male, approximately the same height and build, but with no existing records in the national database. The revelation turned the case on its head. The man everyone believed to be a victim was, in fact, the murderer, and he had vanished. Police began reconstructing the timeline of events in detail. Rakesh had likely drugged his wife and children hours before the fire, ensuring they would never wake up. He had then set the house ablaze to make it appear as though the entire family, including himself, had perished. During the chaos, he slipped away, leaving behind a stranger's body as his own. But who was the unknown man? Investigators discovered that in the weeks leading up to the tragedy, Rakesh had been frequently seen near the local railway station, speaking to a homeless man who sometimes helped with odd jobs. It was suspected that this unfortunate man became part of Rakesh's plan, used to stage his death and destroy all traces of his identity. Rakesh's trail grew cold quickly. He had drained his accounts days before the fire and taken with him forged documents and cash. Airports, railway stations, and border checkpoints were alerted, but there was no trace of him anywhere. For months, investigators chased leads across several states, but each one ended in disappointment. The once respected officer had vanished as if he never existed, leaving only ashes, grief, and the haunting question of how a man could go so far to escape his own guilt. 2 years after the fire, the Sharma case had become a haunting mystery that refused to fade. People still whispered about it in Bhopal, but most believed Rakesh Sharma had escaped abroad under a new identity. Then, in a quiet town near Pune, a strange report reached the police. A local lodge owner claimed that one of his long-term guests, a man who called himself Rajiv Sinha, had died by suicide in his room. The man had been staying there for months, always paying in cash, speaking little, and avoiding attention. When the manager entered the locked room after a foul smell was noticed, he found the man's body slumped near the bed, a half-empty bottle of sleeping pills beside him. When authorities arrived, they treated it as a routine case until they found something that changed everything. A faded passport photo of Rakesh Sharma tucked inside a worn-out wallet. Forensic confirmation removed all doubt. The man who had vanished after killing his family was finally found. The search was over, but the truth was still incomplete. During the examination of his belongings, police discovered a handwritten letter on yellowed paper. The confession inside revealed the terrifying details of his crime. Rakesh admitted to drugging his wife and children, loosening the gas pipe, and using the body of a homeless man to fake his death. He had escaped through a hidden passage behind the kitchen wall that opened into the backyard, unseen by neighbors during the storm. The letter also revealed his state of mind. He was consumed by guilt, paranoia, and loneliness. He wrote that he could not bear the silence anymore, and that every night he saw his family's faces in his dreams. The confession ended with a single line that froze every reader. "I took their lives to protect their honor, but lost my soul instead." The discovery of Rakesh Sharma's body and confession sent shockwaves through the country. News channels replayed the story for weeks, calling it one of the most disturbing cases of hidden deceit and self-destruction. The man once praised for his discipline and integrity had turned out to be a criminal who destroyed everything he claimed to love. People who had admired the Sharmas struggled to accept the truth. Neighbors who had shared meals with them could not reconcile the smiling father they knew with the killer described in the reports. In Bhopal, the burnt house stood untouched for months, a silent reminder of the tragedy. The walls were blackened, the windows shattered, and the garden overgrown. Eventually, the property was sold to a developer who demolished it to build new apartments. Yet locals said that even after the demolition, strange things continued to happen on the site. Lights flickering at night, footsteps echoing when no one was there, and the faint smell of smoke drifting through the air. Whether these stories were true or not, they became part of the legend that surrounded the Sharma family's downfall. Psychologists later analyzed the case, describing it as a tragic example of how pride and fear can destroy a person. Rakesh had built his entire life around appearances, obsessed with how others saw him. When his crimes threatened to expose him, he saw death as the only way to preserve his image. His need for control extended even to his family's fate, ensuring they would never witness his disgrace. Over time, the case faded from headlines, but it left behind a haunting lesson. Evil doesn't always arrive in monstrous forms. It can hide behind polite smiles, neat homes, and respected titles. The story of Rakesh Sharma became a chilling reminder that sometimes the most dangerous secrets live closest to home.